Before we jump into this episode, I wanted to make sure that you knew about my 5-day 7-figure business school. This is an opportunity to spend 5 days with me to be able to learn the blueprint to growing a 7-figure education consulting business. During these 5 days, I'm gonna be teaching you the psychology of a millionaire. We'll talk through how to identify that $1 million problem in your business. I'll help you package your offers as well as the pricing. I'll teach you my 7-figure sales process and help you identify the leads to pitch by the end of the 5 days so that way you can start making money immediately. This is a mind-blowing opportunity that you won't even believe that it's completely free. So in the show notes, you have the link to be able to sign up for my upcoming 5-day business school, and I look forward to seeing you there. Some people think they're losing things by focusing, when you just gave us an example of like, no, it allowed us to really be able to scale from this standpoint. As a former teacher, I don't believe that you have to sacrifice your purpose in order to get paid. If anybody deserves to be a millionaire, it's an educator. I'm Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, and you're listening to 7-Figure Educator. Welcome back to another episode of the 7-Figure Educator podcast. I'm super excited for this conversation that we're getting ready to have with two of my good friends, Eshonda and Jessica Wright, co-founders, CEO and COO of Innovative Senior Solutions. And y'all, go ahead, make sure your wig is on tight, because this conversation is truly going to blow you away by the blueprint that we're getting ready to lay out around growing an 8-9-figure business. So buckle in and let's go ahead and jump in. First off, before we kind of start at the beginning and go through your story, tell us about your business. That way we can put everything into context. Give us just a couple of sentences around your business and what you all do.
But our business, we do adult daycare. That is our chicken sandwich. We like to say that's our chicken sandwich like Chick-fil-A. And we've done a lot of different things in senior care. We've done personal care homes, home care, even transportation. But right now, our main thing is adult daycare.
And for folks who may not know, some people know adult, some people know a daycare, and they're like, adult daycare? Like, what does that actually mean or look like? Can you just give us a couple sentences of explaining what adult daycare is?
So adult day is senior care for adult seniors, 65 and older, and for disabled adults, and even special need children who have aged out of high school. It's daytime care. We're kind of open from 8 to 2. We pick them up, we take them home, they get a meal, they get activities. And our model also is a healthcare model because there's a nurse present. So it's not just socialization, it's also healthcare as well.
Okay, so we're going to unpack all of this. I wanted to start to just give people context in terms of your business, and then we're going to pull back some of the layers. And so I want to kind of just frame this up for our audience, because what I admire around both of you all is that you all live in a really, really big vision for your business. Let's first start with, what is the vision for where your business is going? And so we heard adult daycare. First off, how many locations do you all currently have?
We have 5 locations right now.
You have 5 locations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? Okay, so I have scaled, like we have multiple locations. And what would you say is the vision? Like 5 years, 10 years from now, what vision do you have for your company?
In 2013, we wrote a BHAG, our Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. And, when you write things, you just don't know, but we're seeing it come to fruition. And so our BHAG is, in 20 years, we will be a nationally recognized company selling innovative caregiving through comprehensive senior networks touching every household. And Eshonda and I, we were talking on our way up, and we were like, we gotta edit that. We gotta change that. Not just nationally, but internationally known.
And we wrote that in 2013. And I guess to add to that vision, like we knew we would be nationally known. We knew we were going to be able to grow outside of our state. We knew that. We just didn't know how. Now that we franchise, we're seeing the vehicle to how to move out of our state, how to really scale our business. And even past that, even getting into more real estate as well. So that's kind of the vision that we have.
Okay, so you named 2 strategies. You said franchise and you said real estate. So I need y'all to get ready for this 8-9-figure conversation, because when we say franchise, that ain't no 6-figure business. When we say real estate, that is a gas to growing a business and growing revenue and wealth. So before we jump into that conversation, let's take a couple steps back to actually your story. And so adult daycare, there's this medical element to it as well, healthcare element. Tell us about your story. Like, how did this start?
We're both registered nurses, and so we have a background, of course, in healthcare, senior care, but it hit home for us. And when it hit home for us, our grandmother told us she didn't want to go to a nursing home. She needed assistance, she needed help. She wanted to be able to stay in her home. And so when we had nothing local to be able to provide that service on a consistent basis, Eshonda and I said, we need to make a solution. And we made a solution for our grandmother and just so many other individuals to be able to stay at home and in their community.
So you're both registered nurses, which I think is fascinating. I mean, not fascinating in itself, but it's like how you have this one decision from an education standpoint has now grown into a company standpoint, because so many people might say, oh, I'm just a nurse. And like in this, given your story, it's like, what you mean just? Like there's so many opportunities in terms of what this could look like from an entrepreneurship standpoint. The business started with your grandmother. Now you have 5 locations and y'all just getting started, even though you've been in the game for a cool little minute. How did you go from providing services for your grandmother to the first location?
Because you said just getting started. Ooh, that almost hit a nerve. Because we're 17 years in the game and we started with home care and we grew that business pretty well. And we ended up selling it in 2019. But along the way for us, like we've added different models. You know how I don't know, like we wanted to be a one-stop shop at one time. That used to be like our little slogan. We want to be a one-stop shop in senior care. So we started doing personal care homes. We started doing adult day. Like we had 1 or 2 of everything, so to speak. And then we just made a decision in 2023 that we want to do one thing and do one thing really well. We need to pick this one thing that we know we're going to be the best at. We know we can be the best at. And that's how we made that decision to start focusing on adult day.
And how'd you go from then 1 to 5?
So we acquired, which I would say is the fastest way to grow. Throughout the years, we always started from scratch. It takes time, it takes money, the main thing is the time to do that. But when we acquired last year in 23, along with this decision, it's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like everything just started falling into place at one time. But we got this offer to buy 3 adult day centers at one time. It was one seller, she had all 3, and we took it. And so we went from 2 to 5.
I know you're listening to this episode, and if you felt like you found your community, well, I want you to take the next step to join our community on Facebook. I have a free Facebook group, other Black education consultants just like you, and we're talking about proposals, we're talking about the next opportunity. People are collaborating and finding contracts together. It's an amazing, beautiful space that we've been able to curate, and I want to invite you to join. So go ahead and click the link in the show notes to be able to request to join my Facebook group, and I look forward to engaging with you there. Okay, so let's unpack a few things, because there's lots of I think really powerful business moves that you just laid out for us. And I know that for a number of people in our audience, like we're now opening up a new conversation that we may not have even thought of acquiring and or exiting a business. And so you said that the first iteration of the company you all sold.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start there. What does it even look like to sell a business?
For us, we made a decision to sell because we went to Tuck. We went to Tuck and we met this really, really smart professor who looked at our numbers and he said, you'll be out of business in 6 months. And so we went back home and we looked at the numbers and we started doing things to turn it around. Like we started diversifying our clientele and all those things like that. And then and I told Jessica one morning, I woke up, I said, wait a minute, we can sell this. And somebody had contacted us like a year before and offered to buy our company. And at the time it was like, no, like we hadn't even heard of selling it. Why would we sell it? People just don't sell their businesses. Like we had never been exposed to that before. For the things we wanted to do for home care, we were way outside of our margins. And so Anyway, I picked the phone up and called the guy and I said, listen, are you still interested in buying our company? And actually it was an asset sale. We were so lucky because we kept our name that we built for 17 years that people know. So we just sold the clients and then the staff that went along with it. And we asked him, I said, are you still interested? And he said, yeah, we want it. And we walked away with $1 million deal that we were getting ready to give away. Because the margins were so low and we were just burning cash, and it was time.
So I think this is a mindset shift for folks, is to realize like their business is an asset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably one of the roadblocks, I think, to many people entering that conversation, is they don't think of their business as an asset, which would set them up to just close their doors or give it away. So once you sold the business, what was the next step after that? Because we then jumped into the story of that. Then you had 2 locations when you got to acquiring the additional 3. So what was the step between, okay, we've sold 1.0 of the business, we've kept our name, which is another plug. Trademarked our name. So because we've trademarked our name, we can sell the business, but keep our name. So then how did you get to then the 2 locations after you sold the first iteration of the business?
So when we sold, we already had those 2 locations.
So you had 3 at that time.
We actually had 4. But 4 different business lines. They wasn't all adult day. We had 2 personal care homes, 2 adult days, and then we had the home care.
Okay.
And transportation.
I think after we sold, I think the next step was really getting into real estate. We wouldn't have gotten into real estate the way we did if we didn't have that financial windfall. And actually the way we got into the real estate was we were trying to avoid that capital gain. So when we sold our business, and I don't know if people know, but like when you sell your business, you get this capital gain, and you get a capital gain tax, which is almost like 20 to 30% of the money that we would have brought home. And so we was trying to avoid paying that. And so we learned Donald Trump had just came into office, and he had this thing called Opportunity Zones. We were looking for someone to help us set up an Opportunity Zone fund, our own fund, so we could put our money in it and do what we wanted to do in real estate. And we could never find anybody. It was like, well, put your money in our fund. No, we don't want to put our money in your fund. We want to have our own fund. And then we met Keto Johnson, who introduced us to Amelia Thomas. Amelia helped us with develop our own Opportunity Zone fund. So we put our money in our own fund, right? And we took that money in the fund and went and bought real estate. So for like 1 year, we bought 28 properties. I told Jessica we had to go in at least 75 to 100. Yeah, it was crazy that year. But yeah.
And what year was that?
It was 2020. Yeah.
Oh, child, y'all was doing all this in a year when we had a pandemic. Okay, there's so much here to unpack. When you say we made the move into real estate, so there's the opportunity fund that you all have established. And is that kind of a separate line or profit center, or does that intersect with the adult daycare center?
It's totally different. So we have
separate.
Yeah. So we have a real estate holding company, which we already had one before we got into that, because someone had already taught us that, you need to get a real estate holding company, own the real estate. So for all the day centers that we had, at the time we had 4 locations, we owned them. Innovative Senior Solutions, which is our adult day personal care home operating company, operated, but we leased from our holding company, which was Wright Properties. And so we had that established already, but then we established another one for the fund.
Okay, gotcha. So it's interesting. So as you all are talking, the thing that comes to my head is I call it the Issa Rae model, which is what I often share with my clients and I think the precursor to that is the Disney model, where for Issa Rae, she has all these different companies, but because they intersect with one another, they can now essentially subcontract for each other. So she has the production company, she has the coffee shop, she has a music label. So the coffee shop is where the production company is filming. The record label is providing the music for all the shows. So it's like you're creating this whole ecosystem of companies that can essentially work for each other, to where essentially you're keeping everything in-house. And so it sounds like you all have built a similar model around, because Disney did something similar. Issa Rae's doing this, where you all are building that in your company, where we have the real estate side, we have the adult day center side, and they can overlap and essentially lease from each other or rent from each other, and creating that relationship between your companies.
Oh, honey, that's exactly what we did. So when we had home care, so our home care clients, when we saw them starting to decline, we would refer them to our own day center. Okay. And then when they started coming to our own day center, they would automatically use our transportation. Right. And then while they attended our adult day, if we saw them continue to decline to the point of almost needing to go to a nursing home, we would refer them to our personal care home. So we had a self-referring system, kind of like what you just described. Yeah.
How have you all leveraged capital and other people's money in this situation? Because I think that's a conversation that many people haven't stepped in or play in, because they're thinking, I need to have all of my resources readily available to buy the vans, to buy the buildings, to do all of this. What have been one or two ways that you all have leveraged other people's money to be able to build this self-referring like ecosystem?
So I remember the first time we went to get our loan to buy a building, we were leasing this center for our adult day. We had leased it for I don't know how many years, like 8 years. And we had outgrown the center. And it was like, well, it's time to buy. We don't outgrown this center. The lease is almost up. Let's go buy something. So we go to talk to the bank. And, the bank look at our financials. And he was like, well, y'all are profitable, but you don't have any assets. We didn't own anything. We were leasing everything back then. And so, yeah, we got to change this picture. And that's when we actually started buying our own location. We first started buying the ones that we operated. And then that's how we got into real estate. But yeah, we were initially told, no, you have a profitable business, but you don't have any assets. And the bank want to see assets, right? So, but yeah, leveraging other people's money, I think we can do a better job at that, but we've definitely had to do that to grow.
What would you say would like one or two examples of what that has looked like generally from leveraging other people's money? Because I think when most people think leveraging other people's money, they think a credit card or maybe a loan from the bank. What might have been some sophisticated ways or just ways beyond a credit card that y'all?
Let me just give an example with that $1 million that we put in the Opportunity Zone Fund. Like we could have went and bought cash buildings. We probably only would have had 7. But we leveraged the bank. And so when we leveraged the bank, we only put 20% of our money down and the rest came from the bank. So instead of us having 7 to 10 buildings, we got 28. So that's an example of leveraging other people's money.
Amazing example. Amazing example. As y'all are talking, first off, this is an 8-9 figure conversation. It's like y'all are moving in this conversation so effortlessly. And there's a part of me that's like so fulfilled in this conversation to be sitting here with 2 Black women who are navigating in this 8-9 figure conversation effortlessly, as if we're just like talking about the sky being blue. Like we're saying, I just built an opportunity fund. Like,
I just about effortlessly.
But my question though is, there could be this perception that it was effortless and it's like, we knew and we just acted. Can you talk to us around like even the opportunity funds, where that's something that is like an 8-9 figure play? And so with examples like that, and even we haven't even started talking about the acquisition of buying another business and exiting a business. Like you all have done all these 8-9 figure plays. What has given you the knowledge and the confidence to be able to make these 8-9 figure moves?
Oh my goodness, it's exposure. It's the exposure, it's having the right business mentor at the right time. Like in every stage of our business, we've always had the right mentor. That's what we were talking about earlier. Like I got to find the right mentor to go in this next stage of our business. And we'll give us credit for that. If we get exposed to it, we're crazy enough to try it. And that's just what we've been doing.
You know what that makes me think of? It makes me think about when we were in Anguilla and we were sitting in that acquisitions and merger like presentation, and I was sitting next to y'all and I saw you on your phone and you were like already sketching out the plan. And then during the break, you were like, Jessica, so this is what I'm thinking. And here we are. Cause what was that? Like a year and a half ago? And in that year and a half's time, we went from like sitting in a presentation about acquisitions and mergers to now you've acquired. a business?
It's so funny, but I don't know. It's just how God works things out for us, right? It's like he's already preparing us, exposing us to things and he's confirming things for us, because when we went to Anguilla, we had the conversation, but then being in the room and saying, yes, this is the right way. This is what we should do. It was confirming in us that yes, we're on the right path. So this has just happened all throughout our entrepreneurship life. It's just things have, we said it, we thought it, and then he confirmed it for us.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about this acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
You acquired 3 centers. So first off, how does one even find out about an opportunity to acquire another business? Like, was it someone in your network? Did someone reach out to you? Like, how did the opportunity come about?
This lady called me out the blue. I don't even know how she got my number. Yeah, that part. It was so funny, as we started working on the deal, she was talking a little crazy throughout the deal, but I'm like, I'm not gonna let nobody break this deal. We finna make this deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to, put my ego aside on some things, and I'm like, no, this is just too good. This is a good opportunity, and yeah. We're going to make it happen.
I know you're enjoying this episode, but I wanted to pop in really quickly to make sure that you know about my event, 7 Figure Educator Live. It is the only event for Black educators who have a vision of a 7-figure education consulting business, and they are ready to make that vision a reality. You have the opportunity to spend 3 days in person with me and my team in Atlanta, Georgia, and I guarantee this is a transformative experience you do not want to miss. So to grab your ticket, you're going to need to head to 7figureeducator.com. Again, that's the number 7figureeducator.com, and grab your ticket before the price goes up. The link is also in the show notes. Go ahead and click, and I'll see you there. You all had 2 at the time of the deal. You already had 2 of your own adult day centers. This deal included 3 more. How long did it take for the deal to actually, from like the moment she called you to the moment like it was finalized, how long did the deal take?
Probably about 6 months.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And was there any time during the deal where you were like, I don't know if this is gonna go through. I don't know or if it was just like, oh no, it was smooth sailing.
We were in a good position, because let me tell you this, when you have money, the lenders will give you money. So we were sitting on some money in the bank at the time, about $1 million. We were sitting on that. And so we got the funding to do the deal. So it was just a matter of us going through due diligence. And so that didn't take, it wasn't that bad of a deal. But I think after the deal is when the work began. We acquired these 3 centers. Day 2, after the acquisition, when we actually took over, half of the staff quit. Half of the staff quit. We didn't see that coming. And these centers are like 2 and 3 hours from our home base. So we're having to get on the road every day now, going to these centers, trying to protect our investment at this point. And it almost took us 6 months just to get a stable team. And then it took another 6 months to get our culture in place. So when we bought these centers, they were losing money. We knew it. They were in the red. But we saw the opportunity. We was like, we can go in and put our marketing team. We can add transportation, which she wasn't doing for her day centers. And so we just saw this opportunity, but we didn't get a chance to do any of that. It took a year for us to do that, and it drained our cash. And then on top of that, we were making these decisions to make adult day the main thing. We stopped coaching. I didn't mention that. We used to coach and consult and help people start personal care homes. That was almost $1 million revenue. We just chunked it. We stopped. And then we had another revenue stream where we helped smaller personal care homes. We managed them. Another almost $1 million revenue we chunked because we wanted to be, because those things kept us so divided. And we wanted to be singular focused. Like, we wanted to know what that felt like. And when I tell you it was the best decision we ever made, like improving, I'm like really seeing quality improvements in the people's lives that we're affecting that's coming to our centers. Like, I wouldn't have been able to, we couldn't have seen that if we would have been so divided in these other things. Like, the other things made money, yeah. But we're going to vote on this one thing. We're going to bet on this one thing. But yeah, that's what that acquisition was like for us. Like, really, we didn't have the bandwidth and we didn't have the expertise or the knowledge. And we've learned now, like, now if we get another one, we're going to be much better prepared. Like, I could have had, or I wish I would have had somebody who I could have sent and just stayed in one of those, each of those locations, probably for the first 6 months, if not the year.
Right.
To make sure the culture got in, they understood the policies, and like we didn't have any of that in place. We just winged it. And thank God we made it through. But that last year was a tough year.
You know what I was just sitting here thinking about as you were talking is the 1.0 version of your business you sold, and you were talking about one of the reasons being the margins. And that was what year did you sell that business?
2019.
2019. And then what year did you acquire these 3 centers? 23. So you sold 1.0, and one of the reasons was like, oh, it's the margins were low. You know, we went to Tuck School of Business, we had this realization, and we had the opportunity to sell it. And then fast forward, you're basically buying what you had previously sold. The reason of why you sold your business was similar to the, you know, what was true of what you acquired, but y'all had grew your business in such a different, you know, to a different place that what originally was causing you to sell, now you see that same situation is now attractive and you're acquiring it. And that just speaks so much to like the growth of your business and just the way that you all like moved and thought, and your belief systems is like what used to be a liability now became an asset.
Yeah.
Right? And like how like amazing and beautiful is that from an opportunity standpoint? The other thing that I heard you mention, which I think I'd love to kind of dive into a little bit from a mindset standpoint, because you basically name like focus, like the power of focus from the CEO standpoint, from a company standpoint of like what that allows you to do. And I think some people think they're losing things by focusing, when you just gave us an example of like, no, it allowed us to really be able to scale from this standpoint. What would be other like lessons, like mindset lessons that you all have learned along the way as you've built this really beautiful business?
Focus now to build whatever we're building to sell it. Like I'm intentionally building it to sell it. And then not just sell it, but now sell it for the most multiples. Like when we sold the first time, we didn't know anything about multiples. We were just trying to get out of a jam and came out lucky on the upside. But this time we're building it to sell, and we want to get the largest multiple. And we already had conversations with people to kind of get an understanding of what that is.
Explain for folks who may not know, when you're saying multiple, like what does that mean?
So when you sell a business based on your EBITDA, you can get multiples based on the EBITDA. And some of it is like industry specific. But we already know for our particular industry that we can get a multiple of 10 if the EBITDA is right, which is the money you bring home, right? Your profit.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's what a multiple is.
And for folks who don't know, EBITDA, earnings after interest, depreciation, tax, and appreciation.
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could Google that. And this is the conversation I've been having with our highest tier clients in our programs, where it's like, at this stage, financial structures become so critical. And so can y'all talk a little bit around like what your learnings have been around the financial structures, around P&Ls, around balance sheet? Like you've been starting to name some of these things throughout the conversation. You said margins, we're now talking EBITDA and multiples. Like what have been some of your learnings around the financial structures, and how did you learn that?
You know, we're nurses, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it took a minute to grasp that. I think initially we had no knowledge of it, and then our business started to grow crazy in I'll say around 2010, and we were having all these growing pains, and we got into this class. It was called Grow Smart actually, and that's when we first got introduced to, like, we didn't even have an accountant. Like we were just filing taxes, and so anyway, got in trouble with that too. That's a whole other story. But anyway, through that class, we learned about we need to have an accountant. We need to learn what our P&Ls, having financial statements. There are 3 different types, knowing what they were, understanding how to read them, understanding how to use them, right? And so we were introduced to that, 2010. And then when we sold that business, luckily we did have good financials in place, because those were one of the things they had to see. They had to actually see 3 years back. So we had good financials. And even now, like learning from financials, like you said, we're using the word margins and EBITDA. Like as I want to buy a location, I need to see what that EBITDA is. Like, I want to see what your revenue is. I need to see what you brought home, and I need to see it over a period of time. So it has taught us the business. It's taught us how we need to look to acquire, and it also taught us how people are going to look at us when we get ready to sell.
So good. And then what were one or two experiences that gave you the language and the skill to be able to dance in these acquisition and merger conversations from like, we know our numbers?
I think the exposure, like I said, we always open to learn, right? We're always open to go to conferences. We self-educate, right? And so we just get ourselves in rooms where we can get the knowledge, the exposure to be able to expose to the information so we can use it in our business. So going to Tug, being in masterminds, just being around like-minded people, because we were not exposed to business at this level, that we had to get in the room.
Because when somebody look you in the face and say you're going to be out of business in 6 months, that's it's a wake-up call.
Right.
That we got to learn numbers. We got to know our numbers. We got to watch our numbers. We got to understand our numbers. You also got to have a cushion too. Like, we went and got a line of credit. Like, we just started moving different after that, for sure.
So good. I think the last place I kind of want to end this conversation is, I think we have a lot of conversations around the kind of the front end of growing a multiple 7, 8, 9-figure business. We don't have as many conversations around the back end of it, of like, this is the reality. These are the things that you need to prepare for. And I think because we don't have as much conversation around it, when people experience it, you're like, wait a minute.
Where'd this come from?
Where'd this come from? Is it me or something? When it's like, no, this is the reality of what happens at this level. And so when you think about that, what would you say would be like 1 to 2 things where it's like, all right, this is the reality at this level, and you got to prepare for this now, and what that preparation might have looked like for y'all?
I would say at this level, I think I was talking to you about it a little earlier, it's the lawsuits. Throughout 17 years of business, we've never had a lawsuit until now. And sometimes it makes you feel like you've done something wrong, or but we're learning, and then people play on your sympathy, like, I need to get out of this contract, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, this is a contract. You sign this contract.
Right.
And so it's almost like we have to, we got to build that muscle. Yeah, that was a muscle that I didn't think we were going to have. And even as I talked to more of my peers in this space, they were like, you get ready. You're going to see more of this.
Right.
Get prepared for this. And so that was something, definitely.
Just to explain for folks, in that type of instance, it's not y'all did something wrong to get the lawsuit. It is someone has a different bar of integrity, and therefore the way that they move and act is they file a lawsuit. Rather than sending an email or having a conversation, they'll send a lawsuit, because now there's more to gain and also more to lose. And so I just wanted to clarify that for folks, because I think, to your point, people think you do something wrong, or I did wrong by somebody, and it's like, no, I didn't do wrong by somebody, but somebody sees an opportunity and they file a lawsuit. What would you add, Jessica?
Yeah, that being bulletproof, I think, is key, because, like you said, being a target. Now, being in a business, you want to help, you want to expose to different people, but then people seeing you as an opportunist. That is definitely one thing. But then I think it's team, having the team, the people around you. We're always looking for someone who's smarter than us, who can help us. And so we're not doing things that we shouldn't be doing, right? And so team definitely, I think, is one thing that we look for, and that we try to make sure that we have great people, our leadership team.
If y'all had any advice for folks who were interested in either just generally growing their business, or interested in franchising, or growing through real estate, what advice would you give folks?
Get in the right rooms, get the exposure, get the mentor. I think it's a lot of things. What we did, it took us years to do, but if we had the right exposure early on, it would have cut our time in half. I would definitely say get in the right rooms for sure. I do a lot of reading. So I think reading is good. I think knowing your business too. Like I see so many people that are jump into something and they won't even do the research. Like you got to do the research. You got to know what you're getting into. So that would be my advice. Sure.
I say bet on yourself. No matter what happens, whatever comes, if this is your purpose, this is your calling, I say bet on yourself because that's what we did. No matter what our background, entrepreneurs was not our background, but we betted on ourselves. We stuck to what we knew and we followed through. We did all the things.
We sure did. It's been a joy just to be able to have the opportunity to dive through your story, share your story with our audience. And even though, like, I know you all, I learned so much during this conversation I already knew y'all was like low-key silent assassins, where it's like y'all just see an opportunity and like you just taking them out one at a time. I think there's just so much power in being able to, on this platform, be able to have two Black women who are able to share the game as well as share their experience of the work y'all have done through your business. I mean, it is so special to hear you all talk about, we started an opportunity fund and we've purchased almost 30 doors and we leveraged other people's money. And now we're thinking through franchising and we've acquired businesses, we've exited businesses. Those are conversations we're often left out of. We're often left out of like pieces of those conversations. Y'all are doing it all, right? And so I just want to be able to honor both of you all and just say that it's been a joy to have you on the podcast. It's a joy to be connected with you all and share your story with our audience. So thank you so much for sharing your story. All right, y'all. Hopefully you enjoyed this conversation. And if you enjoyed the conversation, I just have one request of you, and that is to share it with a friend. Because y'all know through this conversation, this is gold, right? This is not a conversation you could just Google, you can just read about. This is a 8-9 figure conversation. And if you care about your friend, you need to send the link. So go ahead, share this with a friend. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button so that way you know when the next episode drops. We will see you on the next one.